What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi back with my man Sheets. We are going to talk Fanduel lineup construction, Fanduel builds. It's an interesting slate and a lot of ways to go with a lot of obvious chalk, I feel like, on Fanduel. So we'll talk about some pivots. Sheets, what are your initial thoughts about Fanduel versus DK?
Yeah, so it's funny. It's similar in that the Atlanta Minnesota stuff is gonna drive a lot of the ownership. I would think. I mean, certainly going to drive where I'm going with a lot of my stuff. And the Boston value from today is similar to the way it usually is. You know, at the small forward position and power forward, so you can choose between that. And we discussed just before that. Boy, oh boy, how chalky is Trae Young going to be? Yeah, maybe pretty chalky. And then I said, well, what about Cat? I mean, maybe the two of them together could be really, really chalky also. But some of the positions have better pivots than others. So we're gonna see how we can build a lineup on lineups on FanDuel without going too crazy, yet still coming up with a decent enough pivots to make it work.
I like it. Let's see what we can do. Well, let's start off with a point guard spot. Speaking of Trae, I think Trae Young and Reggie Jackson seem like they're going to be the primary chalk at point guard. I think that you will get, excuse me, I'm on the my wrong page here. I think you'll get some ownership on guys like Conley. I think that Kyle Lowry is too cheap, and I like him. I think Brogdon, you get some ownership, but not anything I'm too crazy worried about. I still feel like for the most part, it ends up flooding a little bit towards Reggie Jackson and Trae Young.
Yeah, I think I think that's good chalk for both of them, if you want to know the truth, at different price points. But I feel as though both of those values are, I don't want to say difficult to fade in the wrong way, but I definitely think I would consider that good chalk. But just to throw another guy into the mix. So you mentioned Mike Conley. It's so fun. I didn't even see what he was on FanDuel. I was talking about him on our DraftKings video as being kind of like a really low owned kind of dart throw, and then I see him on FanDuel at 4,300. I'm like, I really hope he's going to be owned here at least, and he will be. Okay.
Yeah, he'll have a little bit.
So here's one place you could go if you wanted to pivot off of Reggie Jackson, I suppose. And the other place you could go, and this is not quite as sexy and whatever, but you could try Jalen Brunson. I mean, he is still the point guard with Luke out, and he is 5,600, so he's within the same price range. So that's another way. I don't think he's going to, I think his path to 50 points is very slim. Let's put it that way. But he would be my next kind of pivot off of these guys. But I do think that Trae and Reggie Jackson are a really good place to start.
Yeah, agreed. I don't think I'm going to do the crazy Darius Garland thing tonight, but 4.7, certainly other slates I'd consider it. I mean, one of these days, Ricky Rubio is going to break a slate. I don't know when that's going to be. I'm just going to put that out there. I think that there's a lot of high projections on Chris Paul, but
yeah, I see that.
I don't find myself gravitating that direction personally. It's a good matchup statistically. I like Paul in matchups also that are going to be competitive and really tight, and I just don't feel like I need to go to him here. I think I would prefer to pay down to Kyle Lowry if I was going to go a somewhat chalky route in that price range, because I sort of like the Indiana runbacks, or I would go to Brogdon, speaking of liking the Indiana runbacks, which I don't love, but I think is fine. And I actually think his minutes projection is a little bit low, pretty much on all the sites I'm looking at, actually, which is just 2 right now. But that's pretty much the guys who I'm considering. I don't think we need to get any more confused. And honestly, for the most part, I'm leaning towards a lot of, I still have a lot of Trae Young, even with what's going to be very high ownership. And I have a lot of Reggie Jackson, but I'm also going to mix in, for me, it's a little Lowry, a little Brogdon are the next places I'm looking. Not really, and a little bit of Rubio, but not really looking at going too many other places at point guard. The only real fade I'm making is Chris Paul for the most part.
And again, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that, if you like Lowry and Brogdon, you could play them together, in the same game. But again, I don't know how if you need to be that different at both point guard positions. You know what I mean? I think it's just even like one pivot off of one of these guys should be enough.
I do think it's worth mentioning.
You need to do that.
if you want to get some Dallas exposure here, I do think you could play Ja too. I mean, look, it's just a guy, he's just going to be really low owned in what's actually a pretty good matchup. So I think you can, it's a deceptively good matchup, I should say. So Ja, and then, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's not a day where I'm in love with 500 point guards like I sometimes am. I do think that Brad Wanamaker at 4,400 is probably in play, and I haven't really been thinking about him that much because his price on DraftKings. It doesn't also feel good to see 4,400 even next to Wanamaker, but at the same time, you have a guy who's been playing all the minutes. You have both guards gone. There's definitely upside in his minutes projection, and he's put up 27 and 26 and 37 in his last two games. Granted, one was Atlanta, but they didn't have all these guys out. So in play, not a guy you want to focus on, but certainly a guy you can consider.
Okay. Shooting guard is going to be interesting because I see that it's an incredible amount of ownership is going towards Andrew Wiggins. As I guess it makes a little sense because of this game environment in general. Just they're missing. I mean, they traded the whole team away, except for Cat, which is he's very important. But there's certainly other things you could do except play Andrew Wiggins. The next two chalky guys could be from the same game. But what I find going to be interesting is that my secondary shooting guard plays are going to be not of correlation issues. I have to make sure that I don't play too many guys from the guard position in the same game. Like, for example, I happen to like Kevin Huerter here, but I don't know if I would play him with Trae Young. Although, again, if you want to make a
full kind of matchup where you might be able to, but I understand.
So I do like him. My favorite play is going to be one's going to get much higher owned on Fanduel, and that's going to be Karis LeVert. I think he's back. I think that especially if he's going to be starting again at 4,500 with Kyrie out, I think that he's just, for me, he's the easiest play that you can make. And on Fanduel, he's going to be really, really high owned, I think. I mean, he's already getting some ownership. I think it's going to be even higher. God forbid Wiggins gets ruled out for trade rumors or whatever, then I think that LeVert could be the most popular shooting guard easily. And then if you go beneath him, I mean, this is where it gets kind of fun. You could go back to Bruce Brown Jr. if you want. Like, if you don't want to play Reggie Jackson, I don't know, again, if I play them both. But there's certainly nothing wrong with playing Bruce Brown again. And this is a guy who I don't think I'm going to play today just because I can't run it back with anybody. I don't know, maybe I feel sore that I missed out on the last one, but Jimmy Butler, I guess, looks to be okay. But I don't think I'm going to go there. I'll leave the other shooting guards to you because I think there are other options here. But I think my favorite is LeVert, and then I probably would spread out for the other ones.
Yeah, LeVert and Dinwiddie definitely stand out. Oladipo and D'Angelo Russell are my others. That's pretty much it. I love the idea of Devin Booker as a pivot, but I'm not playing enough lineups for him to get there. I'm completely fine skipping Andrew Wiggins entirely. That's just where I'm at. I could make a case for DeLon Wright, or I'm just not going to. It's LeVert, Oladipo, number 1 and 1A. No, number 1 and 2. I give LeVert number 1. And then Dinwiddie is, he's an incredible play, as is D'Angelo Russell. I like, and unfortunately, you can't get that whole if you can't do that little stack with these prices, which would be nice if we could play a point guard version of Dinwiddie tonight, but we can't. So that's a little bit of a bummer. But yeah, I'm all over the LeVert, the same guys. I mean, that's really all I'm using.
Well, I'm staring at the board here, and you brought him up a couple of games ago, and I'm just looking to see who of the guys we even mentioned are going to get 50 points, and I just keep going back to freaking Oladipo, even though I wasn't going to play him. I mean, he's 4,800. He's going to play maybe 28 minutes now. I know he's been playing kind of like crap. I suppose that's the best way to describe it. And Toronto's certainly no joke, but 28 minutes of Oladipo at 4,800 could be, some people like to say, intriguing. I wasn't going to go there. I was going to be a little safer and go with Huerter or something like that. But maybe Oladipo should get a little more of my attention.
Yeah, I think he should. 28 minutes at 4,800 for Oladipo.
It's a little ridiculous, right?
It's absolutely absurd. And what's crazy is the ownership is not going to be like anything out of hand.
Nope.
So I'm into it.
Okay. Where do I have it? Small forward. All right. So small forward. This is when you start in with the. I don't want to say the nonsense, but you start in with the small forward. So the two my two best value plays are both coming from this position, and that's going to be Culver and Okogie from Minnesota. I don't know who's going to start. I don't know what's going to be the highest owned. I presume that they're both going to get a great deal of ownership. So pick one, pick two. I think that one of them is going to have to get there. Let's put it that way, at least. And you might even get away with playing two. The thing is, at small forward, you also now you start talking about the Celtic value also between Gordon Hayward and Jaylen Brown. So you could certainly play, and again, I'm not giving you anything off the board here. They're both going to get ownership. But I do happen to like them both with all these other guys out for Boston. So I think, unfortunately, at this position, it's going to be some combination of chalk for me between either one Celtic guy, one Minnesota guy, two Celtic guys, or two of those Minnesota guys.
So I think it's interesting because I actually think that there's a lot of ways you can go at small forward. And I wonder if maybe we might be forcing it a little bit with playing both Culver and Okogie, or if you even need to. So that's partly my first thought. I also think you have some interesting other plays like Joe Ingles, who's going to be unowned at 4,400. That's an interesting pivot off of those guys. Could easily outscore them. Taurean Prince, another guy who I like, and sort of this site is sort of like begging me for that Brooklyn Golden State stack for some reason. If of course no one's traded and all that. I also think that I really like. I find myself needing to pay up other places at small forward. So I like Siakam. I like the Celtics guys, but I don't think that they're going to have crazy ownership because I think it's going to be a lot to Culver and Okogie. I think you're going to see a little bit an underpriced Danilo might get some people's attention. You're going to have it's going to be pretty spread out than that, and then you've got the weird one. If Tim Hardaway Jr. at 4.9, again, a lot like Prince. These guys could easily outscore. Like they could have games. This is a good spot. Like without Luka, obviously. So I sort of like that, and I even like Will Barton. So I'm okay with all those pivots. Having said that, with what I've got right now in my three main lineups, I've got one with Okogie. I've got one with Culver. I've got one with Hardaway. I've got one with Siakam. I've got one with Brown. I've got one, and I've got two with Hayward.
I really like the Hardaway idea that you mentioned. You know, I spoke about this on the DraftKings video. You know, guys like this, when they're chalk, they they're dangerous chalk because they're shooting dependent and scoring dependent. But on the other hand, when they're not chalk, they certainly do have a wide range of outcomes. They do have a lot of upside. So I really like that idea, and especially you could get some pretty interesting game stacks going on if you use Kristaps or Brunson or Hardaway. And like you said, if you want to get really, I don't want to say crazy, but you could play Ja as you discussed earlier. So again, maybe this is getting a little bit too nutso, but I think Hardaway is a really, really good pivot off that chalk. As you,
I would say that I think Culver's the better play than Okogie. That if I had to pick between the two of them, which you kind of somewhat do a little bit,
okay.
I think Culver's a slightly better play than Okogie personally.
Okay. Power forward, on the other hand, I think that it's not the pay down spot. It's gonna be the pay up spot, and I have, what do I have? 1, 2, 3, like actually 3 kind of pay up-ish type guys and 1 kind of mid-range guy, which nothing's going to be that off the wall. Kristaps, I think, is going to be a really, really good play again. He's 8,700. It's not as good of a play as he was, I think, a couple of days ago. He's much cheaper, I think, but he looks like a really, really good play. And then there's Tatum for all the reasons we discussed about why these Boston guys are good. with Kemba out, he's especially good, and he rates to be a good play also, and he's going to get ownership also. But what might be the lower own, let me just kind of see, of these types of guys, and maybe he's going to get ownership too, so maybe this is all a bunch of nonsense. So maybe John Collins might be a different way you could go. Like, let's just say that you want to play Collins without and not play Trae Young, or you can play them both. But I think that Collins could be a little lower, maybe not that much, but certainly lower owned than Kristaps, and maybe even lower owned than Tatum. Maybe you could go with somebody like that. And then the other way you could go is go all reliable with to Serge at 5,900, who's still going to rate to be a real, pretty good play. And you could save a little money by doing that. But aside from those guys, I mean, there's nothing. I mean, I didn't really look too much at Larry Nance again. Maybe you like him a little bit, but just basically those main guys for me.
Yeah. I'm wondering about the Larry Nance one myself, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to. I don't know. I'm having trouble with that one because I really like the Larry Nance play here. But I really like the other guys. I like the big guys too. I'm into Kristaps. I'm very into Sabonis over here.
Well, that could be a good one for you. I mean, because he's definitely not gonna get the ownership of those other 8K guys.
The way some of these pricing works is funny on FanDuel because it's a little different, taking me off of my different builds that I like of original guys on DraftKings, just because I think that if you look at hold on one second, I'm just grabbing my sheet. I think Larry Nance is a spectacular play. First of all, I want to just say that, like, a great tournament play, probably going to be way under owned, still going to have some ownership, but you don't need to go there as much. Ibaka will be way lower owned than he should be. Also a very strong play. Then you've got guys like Kristaps, who I really like. I like Maxi Kleber. I think the minutes projection is a joke on him, and I think he plays 30 minutes. But I just think his position's got a lot of interesting plays. I like John Collins as a direct pivot off of Porzingis and those guys, and Sabonis and those guys. But I really like Sabonis. I think Sabonis is going way overlooked. I really like that game. Toronto's been playing fast. Sabonis has the upside we want. He's getting to 50 here plenty of the time. He's got a high floor. So Oladipo playing is not really going to affect him all that much. It's not as big a difference as you think it is. So I just like that way of going about it. Other guys you could get to are guys like Brandon Clark or Michael Porter Jr. if in fact he's playing. But that's just sort of the where I'm going. A combination of Nance. I also think I will have like a Tatum lineup in somewhere. I don't know where, but I just think that he's an interesting play as well. And I just think he gets probably overlooked even with all those guys out just because his perceived ceiling. But I think he's actually got a high enough ceiling here to be in play.
Yeah, sounds good. And Sabonis, that's interesting because, like I said, I mean, the position is just, I'm gonna say loaded. I don't want to make that sound those are great plays, but it's stocked with players from that same price range that are going to just soak up a lot of the ownership. So somebody like Sabonis could, I could just see, you texting me at like 7:32 or something. Like, oh my God, Sabonis. You know what I mean? Like I can totally see that happening.
Yeah. No, I gotcha. So I think it's a very strong position, and everybody's like all those guys are in play, but I just named the guys who I like. And by the way, you know what, some of this Memphis stuff, like throwing in a Jaren Jackson versus Porzingis in certain spots, especially if we may not know and we actually think that there's a chance Val might sit, Jaren Jackson and Brandon Clark would become in play as well.
Yeah, you paused for just a second, but what Bobby said, he kind of faded out just a little bit, was that there's a chance that Valanciunas might sit. So if in fact he did sit, then Jaren Jackson Jr. would be a good play. So maybe if you want to take a dart throw on FanDuel without knowing any of the news, you could take a shot at Jaren Jackson Jr.
Yeah.
Center, I mean, for me is easy in that I know where my decisions are going to be. I know which decisions I have to make. So at the the easiest play, I would say easiest play, but the obvious play for me is just to pay all the way up and pay and get Cat at probably going to be really, really high ownership on the slate. And he's in a really, really great spot and all that stuff. And he's going to be chalky, but he's certainly, to me, the best play. Now, what you do, the pricing kind of dictates where the pivots are. So first of all, there's obviously a direct, pure pivot if you wanted to play Andre Drummond. And that is certainly something you could do. And again, from a construction perspective, again, I would just say that, you don't have to do that if you have a lot of differentiation elsewhere. But if you need to, dechalkify or just make your lineup a little different, then it's certainly something pure that you could do. Then the other two ways you could go is, number one is you could drop down in price a little bit and choose between Ayton and Gobert. I think that Ayton I would imagine is going to be the more popular. I'm not sure, but I don't think that either of them would be that highly owned either way. So
I would imagine Gobert is more popular, to be honest.
You think so?
I don't think either of them are especially popular, so I don't think you're
yeah, so you could do that. Or, again, if you want to go just completely, a totally other direction, I don't even know how you'd spend the salary if you did this, but you could go all the way down to Cantor at 4,200. Who I don't know what kind of ownership he's going to get over there. He's a good play on DraftKings, I think, at 4,200 on FanDuel. In a vacuum, 4,200 is a really, really good price for him. And if that allows you to get other places, that's great. But I don't know if if you need to get that salary in other places. There's such great plays at cheaper prices in these other positions, but I just don't know what the benefit is, right, of saving 6,000 at center.
Yeah, I think if you play that, so here's my thought. If you're going to play that Cantor at center, that's where you play your D'Angelo Russell versus Spencer Dinwiddie going for absolute maximum, just raw points from the shooting guard position. So that's the way you've got to play on FanDuel. You've got to just try to get raw points versus the position. That's the truth. Even sometimes if you're paying way more, because on a day like today where there's weird value out there, you can sort of pick and choose whatever you want to do. So that would be the kind of lineup I would do something like that in. Maybe that would be the kind of lineup where you play both Celtics in the small forward spot.
Yeah, but then what you have to do is then you have to, because now that you don't have Towns, right, if you're giving up both those Minnesota small forwards, you're going to almost have to play Wiggins, no?
That's the thinking, and I'm wondering if on FanDuel that it ends up being absolutely necessary. If they do, in fact, end up playing 9 guys and you can get more of a ceiling from other spots, you could also do something weird and pay up at you could also play Naz Reid at power forward for minimum cost, which I think would be just getting exposure to a guy who could be productive in a really good game environment, and we don't know what the minutes will be. That's one other thing to do. I also, like I mentioned, I really like Siakam as a small forward tournament option, and I like playing like a Siakam Oladipo Brogdon or a Siakam Oladipo Sabonis, or even Lowry you could throw in there. Like, that game has me more wanting to stack over here because the pricing and how different they are than the positions and how easily it is to mesh them in with basically any other build you want and all your other favorite plays. So I'm finding myself in a game that I didn't have any interest stacking to actually having some interest in a mini stack, because just for their prices, you could see a lot of 6 to 8Xs here in what should be a competitive game environment. And I just don't see people doing that.
Yeah. I don't want to play too many Celtics.
But my fear right now is that I've got too many Larry Nance's.
Oh, wow.
Because I just ended up re-looking at my things, and it's just, I just don't feel like he's getting less than 30.
He's been playing well even when these guys have been in.
Yeah. The minutes upside is there. I just feel like, and I think that he gets overlooked maybe a little bit. Maybe not. Maybe Porzingis' price will scare some people off as the day goes on. But what I'm doing is trying to correlate more on FanDuel. That's what I wanted to point out. So where I'm playing Kristaps, if I'm going to take a shot on Ja Morant, I prefer Lowry, but I want to play Ja Morant in that lineup with Kristaps probably. So I'll play Lowry in my lineup with Oladipo Sabonis and LeVert or something. LeVert is different, obviously. And then instead of playing LeVert and Russell, I'm spending all the way up with my Dinwiddie Russell in the lineups where I'm paying down at center or power forward or both small forward spots or something like that. I'm playing both of those guys along with Trey. It makes me nervous not to have more Minnesota exposure, to be honest, on FanDuel. But I sort of like the giant slate, the fact that the savings they get you aren't quite what they mean on DraftKings. So I think you can go different directions on FanDuel today than just having to lock Minnesota in. I do have Towns in, just to be completely honest. I have him in 2 out of my 3 large lineups right now. Now, if I felt like one of them was too chalky, which it isn't, but I could very, very easily make a 1v1 pivot for him to Andre Drummond, who will have half the ownership. And I'm just going to throw it out there. If you're playing 10 or more lineups, make sure you have some exposure to Rubio. It's getting to the point where at 5%, when it will not surprise any of us when he puts up a triple-double and has 50-plus fantasy points, it's just got to be considered when we play him, even though I don't have him in my first 3 builds.
Rubio. Okay.
I mean, it's just, look at this price, man. This is not going to go on forever. I mean, maybe he's broken right now, but I will keep taking that chance. This guy could have a bad game and put up 35, but he's just been phased out. Like, I mean, it's not going to keep happening that way. Javante Carter's not going to take his minutes from him.
Right. Okay. I mean, I think that we covered some good stuff on FanDuel, and I think that there's – it's so funny that I usually look at DraftKings as the place where I'm going to end up, correlating and stacking, because you can move guys around a lot in different positions. But it seems as though, as you were just kind of alluding to, you can correlate really nicely on FanDuel today. And in doing so, you're naturally pivoting off of chalk, and you're not pivoting like to Never Land either. You know what I mean? Like you're pivoting off of okay chalk, but into decent plays. It's not like, boy, I really want to stack this Orlando game, so I have to play 100%, Markelle Fultz or something like that. You know what I mean? Like you can get correlation without having to go too far off the board. Yeah,
exactly. There's a lot of ways to go. I'm just going to tell everybody that's my plan tonight. That's my move. It may come back to bite me, but I think there's plenty of other good plays to where I'm just not going to play Andrew Wiggins. I honestly think he could put up 40 plus, and I'll be fine. I'm just not going to. He's not going to bug me unless he gets in that 50s range, and somehow everybody else just busts. But I don't see that happening tonight. It's going to take a lot of points to win. And the only thing I would point out about this lineup, what I don't like about it, I think you're asking a little bit too much from your Celtics without enough correlation.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I don't have too much Celtics in this thing. I'm just trying to see what I could get.
What I would do with this lineup is take something like, I mean, obviously I'm not playing Wiggins, but I would do something like play Vooch at center if I'm going to play and skip Cantor or something like that. I want to try and find – I like Vooch as a pivot anyway off these other guys. I think he's got a great matchup and no one's looking at him. But so if I'm going to play a couple Celtics, I actually was considering a lineup with Hayward, Brown, and Tatum with Vooch at center. Literally you just take the complete shock value everywhere else.
Yeah. So in summary, I think that what we could all gather from this is that the guy who's going to break the slate is Markelle Fultz.
This is my price over here. I didn't notice him.
No, I was going to say, I use him as an example of something you don't have to play just to be completely off the wall. So he's probably going to end up being the guy that breaks the slate wherever he is. What is he? He's 5,900. So I guess I'm going to leave it with that I think you can correlate these lineups pretty nicely over here. And I'm still not 100% sure how much it's relevant on a slate like this to correlate all these guys. But I think that you could do it kind of naturally without having to force it, which I think is important. All right, you want a hot take?
I agree it's not relevant. It's very easy to do. And it's also, to be honest, you can use it as a tiebreaker in a lot of these cases. Because there's going to be, there are spots where you have guys in similar price ranges that you can really decide to go different routes, or 2v2s that you can make all over the place that will just correlate better, even if maybe they give you a slightly lower average expected.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Sheets, great doing this with you. You guys, we will be back. I don't think I will be doing a live stream today because I actually will be on the road for my daughter's basketball game. And go Dons. And anyway, good luck to everyone tonight, and we'll see you at the top of the leaderboards.